Picture this. You're sitting in a group of friends. Someone pulls up their sleeve, and there it is, fresh ink, still a little red around the edges. Everyone leans in. Someone holds their phone flashlight over it. There are gasps, compliments, questions. What does it mean? When did you get it? Does it hurt? And you're sitting there, quiet, touching your own arm without thinking about it. Smooth, unmarked, yours. Nobody asks about your skin, because there's nothing to ask about. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a thought you've had 100 times surfaces again. Am I the only one? You've scrolled through Instagram and seen story after story written in ink. Quotes on ribs, flowers on forearms, coordinates of places that mattered. Maps of journeys people needed the world to know they took, and you kept scrolling. Not with judgment, but with this quiet feeling you've never quite been able to name. Maybe someone told you once that you'd look better with a tattoo. Maybe you laughed it off, but you thought about it longer than you admitted. Here's the thing most people get completely wrong about you. They look at your blank skin and they assume things. They think you're playing it safe. They think you're afraid of needles or afraid of commitment or afraid of standing out. They think you just haven't found anything meaningful enough yet. That one day you'll walk into a studio and finally decide. But what if that's not it at all? What if your blank skin isn't hesitation? What if it's something far more rare? Let me blow your mind for a second. There's a specific kind of person who goes through their entire life without a tattoo, not because they lack depth, not because they lack stories, but because something in their mind works differently. Something in the way they experience time, identity, and meaning sets them apart. And if you're watching this, I think you might be one of them. I'm not here to make you feel special in a cheap way. I'm here to show you something real. Because the psychology behind not marking your skin is actually more complex than the psychology of getting inked, and almost nobody talks about it. Let's start here. Close your eyes for a second and imagine yourself at 20. Or maybe you don't need to imagine. Maybe you remember exactly who that person was. The things they cared about. The music, the heartbreak, the version of the world they believed in. Now ask yourself honestly, is that still you? For most people, the answer is a quiet no. Not a dramatic no, just a slow, soft no. Because you evolved, you grew, you shed things you thought were permanent, you started valuing things you once ignored. You became someone that the 20-year-old version of you couldn't have predicted. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people are unusually aware that this will keep happening. Psychologists call it future self-continuity. Your ability to feel emotionally connected to the version of yourself that doesn't exist yet. Most people live mostly in the present. They make choices based on who they are right now. But people with high future self-continuity are different. They make decisions while holding their future self in the room with them. And when you're like that, when part of your mind is always quietly consulting the version of you that's still becoming, permanence starts to feel dangerous. Not scary, not cowardly, dangerous, like making a promise on behalf of someone you haven't met yet. Think about the last time you almost decided on something permanent. Maybe it wasn't even a tattoo. Maybe it was a job or a relationship or a place to live. Did you feel this particular kind of pause? Not anxiety exactly, not fear, something quieter. Like your mind running ahead into the future and looking back at you from there, saying, "Are you sure you want to lock this in?" That pause is not a flaw. That pause is actually a form of emotional intelligence that most people never develop. But here's where it gets more interesting. Because it's not just about the future. It's about who you are right now and how you hold that identity. Some people treat identity like a destination. They arrive at a version of themselves and they plant a flag. They get the tattoo that says, "This is who I am. This is what I love. This is what I've survived. This is the story I carry." And that's beautiful, genuinely. But you're not like that. You treat identity like motion, not stone. You don't experience yourself as a fixed thing. You experience yourself as something that's always in the middle of becoming. And deep down, maybe without even having words for it, you resist anything that would freeze one version of you into permanence. Psychologists have a name for this. They call it identity foreclosure, the process of locking yourself into a particular identity too early, before the full picture has emerged. People who avoid tattoos often have a natural, almost instinctive resistance to this. Not because they're lost or confused about who they are, but because they understand, on a level that feels almost physical, that they are unfinished. Not broken, not incomplete, unfinished, still in motion, still becoming. And they don't want to tattoo one chapter onto a body that still has so many left to write. Pause here for a second. When was the last time you changed your mind about something you were absolutely certain of? Not a small thing, something real, a belief, a relationship, a version of the future you thought you wanted. If you're being honest with yourself, it probably happens more than most people around you realize. Because that's the other thing about people like you. You're not just aware that you'll change. You actually do change, deeply, regularly, in ways that sometimes even surprise you. And somewhere in your psychology, there's an understanding that meaning is not static. What matters to you today may not carry the same weight in 10 years, not because you're fickle, but because you grow. And you can't help but imagine standing in front of a mirror at 50, looking at the symbol of something that no longer holds the same meaning it once did. Not with regret exactly, but with that particular feeling of being trapped by your own past self. And that feeling, just the anticipation of it, is enough to make you pause at the threshold of the tattoo studio and walk away without going in. Here's something that might surprise you. You probably carry more meaning inside you than most of the people around you. You just carry it differently. There's this quiet assumption in our culture that meaning needs a medium, that if something matters to you, you should express it, mark it, declare it. Wear it on your body, or your sleeve, or your profile picture. But for some people, meaning doesn't need a medium. You remember things differently, deeply, privately. The trip that changed you doesn't need to be etched into your skin because it's already etched into the way you see the world. The person you lost doesn't need a name on your collarbone because their absence is already woven into everything you do. You are not performing your depth, you are living inside it. While other people build external archives of who they are, visible, tangible records of their stories, your psychology works more like a private library. Organized not by display, but by feeling. And the door to that library is not open to everyone. That's not coldness. That's a very specific kind of soul. And then there's this last thing, the one nobody talks about. For certain people, especially the ones who spend a lot of time inside their own minds, permanence doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It feels like a kind of trap. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that sends you into panic. Just this low, persistent awareness that once something is permanent, a door closes. And closed doors, for you, have a weight to them that most people don't feel as heavily. This isn't commitment phobia. Stop for a second because I want to be very clear about that. This is something different. This is the psychology of someone who is deeply, almost painfully aware of optionality, of possibility, of the roads not yet taken. And permanence, any permanence, represents the quiet death of those roads. To you, unfinished feels safer than permanent, not because you're afraid of commitment, but because you are acutely aware of how much of yourself is still ahead of you. Your blank skin isn't an empty canvas waiting for someone brave enough to mark it. Your blank skin is a declaration, a quiet, private, unspoken declaration that you are still in motion, that you refuse to be defined by any single version of yourself. That freedom matters more to you than certainty. And that is not a small thing. Some people tell their story with ink. And some people become the story, layered, complex, always evolving, while remaining completely unmarked. Your skin says nothing, and somehow that says everything. Silence is not emptiness. Untouched is not unfeeling. And the absence of a tattoo does not mean the absence of a life worth marking. It might just mean you are the kind of person who holds their entire world inside and carries it quietly, like it was always meant to be yours alone. If this video made you think differently about tattoos or the lack of them, hit that subscribe button